For those who don't know me, I don't even like thinking about my case, but if I do, it'll help me get motivated to do more. When I think about my own case, it tends to make my blood boil. My case started in 1989, and I was done paying child support in 2005. And since then, you know, once that happens, once you get out from under the web of the family court, it's you know, you feel like just getting on with your life. But we can't do that. I mean, I never could. I'm still alienated from my kids. These are the main points. This is a short version. I've got a longer on my website, exileparents.org. It's called The Main Points and Damages. And I call it Virginia versus Young. Because even though it was Kathy Young, that was my ex, versus Mark Young, it was really Virginia. It's the state versus a fit parent. That's what we all know it is, right? In 1989, the court awarded sole custody to my ex-wife without any showing that I had caused harm to my kids, which is the standard set by federal case law interpretation of the U.S. Constitution to meet prior to denial of one's fundamental right to be a parent. I was falsely accused of assaulting my ex-wife. The judge claimed to believe her even though she changed her story 4 times, each time she told it. Although the assault criminal case was dismissed, the matter was raised in both the family and the circuit courts as if I were guilty, to pretend a justification for not allowing joint or shared custody. However, even if I had assaulted her, which I did not, it was never even alleged that I had harmed my kids. Without a showing of harm to children, states have no legal basis to deny custody. Again, I'm a Marine vet, honorably discharged. I got out in 1983 before all the crazy wars. And I had never been charged with any crime in my life. Never charged, never tried, never convicted of anything. I'm a sinner. God knows I'm a sinner, but I've never done anything to deserve losing my kids. My kids were devastated by losing their father at age 3, my oldest daughter, and my twins, a boy and a girl. They were a year and a half old. Since I had been their primary caretaker at home due to an injury on the job, I lost parental authority and was reduced to a visitor status with supervised visitation 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday every 2 weeks. Later, I was granted unsupervised visitation every other weekend. Next came the financial persecution, the extortion of my assets. The court imputed wages to an amount 20% higher than my highest ever income, even while I was receiving workers' compensation at 66% of my most recent income. The court ignored debts that I incurred for retraining following my injury on the job. I had been an electrician and I was injured up on a high-rise, and that's a long story. I had 3 surgeries on my hand, and my doctors proscribed me from doing any more electrical work. I couldn't do any gripping or any heavy lifting. I've since, many years later, I became a residential electrician because I don't do any of that type of lifting that you do in commercial electrical work. So that's why I can do electrical work now only on homes. A complete divorce hearing never occurred, even though the circuit court judge stated on 5/31/90 in that hearing that a full day hearing was needed. He continued the hearing until December, specifically for that purpose. On 12/11/1990, the court denied me standing due to failure to pay the extortion, child support. Even though I'd never got a divorce hearing, the only thing they cared about was the money. I went to jail. So what happens is first they put a ball and chain on your legs, then they fault you for not being able to run. They use the money issue to avoid a complete divorce hearing. Okay, so my attorney in 1990, he went ahead and signed a divorce decree after I had expressed to him my intent to dismiss him, because he advised me to settle the case. He wanted me to settle for a less amount of money. I didn't care about the amount of the money. I wanted my kids. I rejected that course in order to have my day in court. I never authorized him to sign a decree which would have prevented a complete divorce hearing. I hired him specifically to pursue fault grounds and the issue of my ex's fraud in inducing me to come to Virginia from California. And a Virginia bar complaint had been dismissed. Now, they're worthless, the bar. They get thousands of complaints every year, and they hear like, I don't know, half a dozen or less, something like that. They're just, it's a fox guarding the hen house. I was effectively made a prisoner in Virginia in order to maintain any relationship with my kids. As a Californian, I was not allowed to return with my kids from a temporary residence in Virginia to my choice of residence, California. And we had made an agreement when we moved from California that it would just be until the kids were weaned, then we go back. So my right to be a parent, my freedom to contract, and my freedom to travel were all denied. My ex deserted the marriage to avoid our agreement to return to California. I have this admission on tape. She lied in claiming we could not afford to return to California. My injury settlement money would have been more than enough to move back to California. The courts refused to address the issue of the agreement and refused to hear issues regarding contributions to the marriage. It has been said that one cannot force someone to relocate, yet the state of Virginia has forced me to remain in Virginia to be near my kids after stealing them from me. It's not like I wanted to force her to go to California because she freely made the agreement, promising to return to California basically after the infant twins were weaned. She married a Californian, me. I made the offer to move near her family temporarily out of generosity, not necessity. My children lost half of their heritage due to lack of access to their father, their paternal grandparents, uncles and cousins. I was unable to afford taking them to see their grandparents and relatives on my side of the family due to custody battles. The court refused to recognize my ex's neglect of our oldest daughter. Her asthma was possibly curable with a vegan diet, yet she never attempted this. There's an article in the Journal of Asthma, volume 22, number 145, a 1985 volume of Journal of Asthma, showed that a vegan diet could cure asthma. When my daughter used to visit me, she used to have to use a motorized nebulizer to control her breathing. She could have been cured, but the ex, even though she should have been charged with child abuse, never happened. My appeals to the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court of Virginia were hindered by inability to afford transcripts. In 1994, the court again ordered supervised visitation for me after I had proven 60 instances of lying by my ex-wife, including lies to the children about me, from which I was forced to defend myself during visits with my kids. You know, it's a terrible thing if you have to talk about the case in front of your kids, but if the mother's filling them full of lies, you got to defend yourself, right? In as least acrimonious way that you can. But yet, I got blamed for that. And again, if only this were on camera. All my hearings were on camera. But no, we got to have secret courts. That's how they do their dirty work, in the secret. The court refused to act on evidence such as her admission of desertion, alienating the kids from me, and her attempts to manipulate me with the amount of visitation. In 1994, the court diverted the legal issue of custody into the realm of psychology, simply because my kids were asking about my vegetarian diet and because the court failed in its duty to act against their mother upon learning about the numerous lies she told them. In 1994, the court denied my freedom of speech with my children. Although their mother changed her diet from vegetarian to a conventional meat diet, I was blamed for the alleged conflict. And the family court proscribed my speech during visits. I couldn't talk about diet with my kids. Even though they were eating the food I prepared for them, I couldn't talk about it. And I didn't cause the conflict. She's the one who changed her diet. We were vegetarians. We were going to raise our kids vegetarian. She became a vegetarian before she married me. In 1995, I was forced into bankruptcy due to fighting custody battles. In 2001, Virginia suspended my driver's license for several months until I could borrow the money to make the extortion payment, so-called child support. My career ambitions were subordinated to the need to fight numerous custody battles. What should have been the most productive years of my life, I spent fighting for my right to be a parent and my kids' right to their father. I lived in poverty for 16 years, paycheck to paycheck, from 1989 until 2005, due to custody battles and debts from the same. I lost all those years of building equity in a home and still have no home of my own. I don't want to go in debt. No thanks. I've been a debt slave, which I would have been able to have but for Virginia stealing my kids, effectively enslaving me in Virginia, and being forced to fight for my rights and my kids' rights. I've been incarcerated numerous times between 1990 and 2001 for a total of 9 months for either inability to pay or for civil disobedience to illegal orders to pay extortion, so-called child support. So my question is, how much does the state of Virginia owe me and my children for keeping me in jail for 9 months for debts which I did not incur, and for 16 years of the hell they've put us through as outlined above? So when I say exiled parents for justice down here, I mean justice. I want to be paid back what Virginia owes me. I don't know, $1 million per kid? How much for every day in court, every day in jail I spent? In with murderers. robbers, getting assaulted. I was assaulted once for turning down the volume on TV, some bullshit TV show I didn't watch. Big guy came up, bam! And that was during a 2-week fast. I got a sore arm. I did a hunger strike for 15 days. And the Attorney General had promised me, I had certain conditions for ending the strike. And they said they would meet my promises. They didn't. Not a damn one of them. They're just lying pieces of shit, man. The lawyers, the judges, Commonwealth's attorneys. These people who run our courts are criminals. It's just the mafia. And until enough people stand up to them, it's going to continue, people. It's going to continue. If we can't get 1 million pissed off parents down here at the Capitol, we're screwed. Who was it who said the price of liberty is eternal vigilance? Something to that effect.